morning, everyone. Please join me in singing Enter, Rejoice, and Log In. Enter, rejoice, and log in. Enter, rejoice, and log in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and log in.
We come together by the light of the chalice flame. We invite you to light a candle or chalice at home along with us as we say together the words we say each week at our fellowship. We light this flame as a symbol of new life enlightening our way, as a symbol of the warmth in every human heart. Let the lighting of this flame rekindle in us the inner light of hope, of peace, of love. May we share that light with all people.
Good morning. We're so glad to welcome you to the Fox Valley Unitarian Universalist Fellowship this morning. My name is Marie Rohr, and I first found the fellowship back when 9/11 happened. I was searching for some solace for my fear at that time. The fellowship offered that to me. A few years later, I became a member, and a few years later, I became an usher. Little by little, I found my bravery to express myself in safe ways. And I'm now serving on my second year with the board. That was a huge step. And just more recently, I am exploring more of the injustices that touch my heart, like with racism and our prison system. If you are here for the first time, I want to extend a very special welcome to you. Marie Luna, our Director of Congregational Life, would love to help you get connected here too. You can talk to her after the service this morning or send her an email. But for now, let's take a deep breath and settle in. Become aware of your body and be with your body wherever you are. Allow yourself to be fully present here in our time together. We're glad you're here.
We are gathered together. We are gathered together here and from our own homes. Thank you, Marie, for welcoming us so beautifully. We're so happy to see you on our Zoom screen and to know that you are here. Our call to gather is The Freedom to Doubt by Paul Stephen Dodenhoff. The freedom to doubt, to question, to be content to live in mystery is central to our liberal religious tradition. Like the process of evolution itself, the path that we follow, our practice, if you will, is not easy or simple. It isn't without its dead ends or disappointments. It doesn't guarantee that all our conclusions will be final or that we will ever find an answer to all of our questions. But also, like the process of evolution, it is filled with great expressions of beauty and awe that are sometimes born of great struggle and at other times come as unexpected grace.
Today, as we celebrate the contributions of Charles Darwin, we remember his lesson that we are all connected, large and small animals, simple and complex species. Our seventh UU principle tells us the same. We are here together today for the purpose of community. And part of that purpose is supporting each other and supporting our community for the present and for the future. For those of you who would appreciate some support, we are here to help. Please don't hesitate to reach out to Reverend Christina or Minister Ali, or if you are in need of financial or emotional support. It is a joy for us to be able to help. And if you are one who is feeling stable and able to give, we ask that you do so in the spirit of community. There are many ways to give to the fellowship. You can give of your time and talent, and we especially need financial resources to allow our ministries to thrive for the months and years to come. If you already give via electronic funds transfer or EFT, we appreciate that. For everyone else, we encourage you to donate online or via our text-to-give function on a smartphone. Thank you. Your gifts are deeply appreciated.
Please join in singing our settling song, Return Again. Return again, return again, return to the home of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the home of your soul. Return to who you are. Return to what you are. Return to where you are. Born and reborn again. Return again. Return again. Return to the home of your soul. Our reading is the last paragraph from Charles Darwin's The Origin of the Species. Thus, from the war of nature, from famine and death, the most exalted object which we are capable of conceiving, namely the production of higher animals, directly follows. There is a grandeur in this view of life, with its several powers having been originally breathed into a few forms or into one. And that whilst this planet has gone cycling on according to the fixed law of gravity, from so simple a beginning, endless forms, most beautiful and most wonderful, have been and are being evolved.
Our next reading this morning is two excerpts from a lecture series entitled Applied Evolution, given by the Universalist minister, Reverend Dr. Marion D. Shutter, in the year 1900. The distinction between natural and supernatural is utterly and forever abolished. There is but one realm, call it what you will. The whole subject of the miraculous must pass under revision. Mysteries there may be, but violation of the laws of nature by him who impressed them upon the universe is now out of the question. Once, these violations were supposed to be proofs for the existence of God. Today, it is felt that the order which everywhere prevails is an infinitely better proof. Science has abolished the old form of the argument from design and obliged all who believe in God to reread his plan and purpose. If we look with awe and reverence upon God when we believed the universe so small, how much greater reverence should we regard him now that the crystalline roof has been lifted and worlds without number are seen revolving beyond? If we knelt with adoration before God when we believed his work extended through but 6,000 years, if we felt that God was being pushed out of his universe when the law of gravitation was discovered, how much more clearly do we see it, that it identifies him all the more closely with his universe?
Our final reading is from the book When God is Gone, Everything is Holy by Chet Ramo. God did it was not satisfactory to Darwin. He sought a story of the past that invoked no agency except those that we see at work in the world today. A single story that embraced the hills, the valleys, the myriad fossil organisms with their similarities and differences. As for the agency behind the story, Darwin was content to say, I don't know. Those three little words, I don't know, may be science's most important contribution to human civilization. Yes, we have learned an astonishing amount about how the world works. But of equal significance is our growing awareness of how much we don't know. Darwin was not adverse to confessing his ignorance. He was especially ready to admit his innocence and ignorance with regard to the big questions, the questions traditionally addressed by religion. Why is there something rather than nothing? Why are the laws of nature what they are? Who am I? Where did I come from? What does it all mean?
When I was a boy, each week on Sunday we would go to church and pay attention to the priest, and he would read the holy word and consecrate the holy bread, and everyone would kneel and bow. Today the only difference is everything is holy now. Everything is holy now. When I was was in Sunday school, we would learn about the time Moses split the sea in two, and Jesus made the water wine. And I remember feeling sad, miracles don't happen still, but now I can't keep track, 'cause everything's a miracle. Everything's a miracle. Wine from water is not so small, but an even better magic trick is that anything is here at all. So the challenging thing becomes not to look for miracles, but to find them where there isn't one. When holy water wasn't rare at best, it barely wet my fingertips. But now I have to hold my breath, like I'm swimming in a sea of it. It used to be a world half there, heaven's second-rate hand-me-down. But I walk it with a reverent air, 'cause everything is holy now. Read a questioning child's face and say it's not a testament. Very hard to say. See another new morning come and say it's not a sacrament. I tell you that it can't be done. This morning outside I stood, I saw a little red-winged bird shining like a burning bush, singing like a scripture verse. It made me want to bow my head. I remember when church let out, how things have changed since then. Everything is holy now. It used to be a world half there, heaven's second-rate hand-me-downs, but I walk it with a reverent air, 'cause everything is holy now.
I recently came across this quote from Albert Einstein. And I'm so tempted to try to do an Austrian accent when I read this, but I won't. I am a deeply religious non-believer. This is somewhat of a new kind of religion. My immediate reaction was, me too, Albert. It wasn't always this way for me, however. I was born into a Roman Catholic family. My parents were not at all devout and were seen in churches only at weddings and funerals. They were married in the Catholic Church, but I suspect that this was driven by my mother's Irish immigrant parents, who were both devout churchgoers. I was educated kindergarten through graduate school in Roman Catholic institutions. And I took my Catholic beliefs very seriously. So much so that I attended both high school and college seminaries to prepare for the priesthood. I even went on to get a master's degree in theology. So I took this whole thing very seriously. But the more I studied, the more cracks began to appear in my personal religious outlook. What ultimately separated me from my Catholic and Christian beliefs was what in theology is called the problem of evil. That problem involves how to reconcile the idea of an all-powerful, all-just, loving God with the massive evil and suffering that we see in the world, both natural and human-generated. The classic theological answers to this problem never did satisfy me. The conclusion that I reached was that you had three ways to answer this problem of evil. The personal God of the Abrahamic religions was either not all-powerful, not all-just, or not at all loving. You either ended up with an incompetent or a monster. For me, the only answer to this problem was to conclude that there simply is no such personal God. When I finally admitted this to myself, I felt pretty empty. But I gradually came around to the understanding that it wasn't necessary to have belief in a Neolithic personal God to be spiritual and or religious. I found that I could experience the same sense of wonder, wholeness, and connectedness of my earlier beliefs in connection with an understanding of the natural world. I no longer felt empty, but filled by contemplation of what the Sufis have called the immensity. Two writers in particular were my guides in this new perspective. The first was Carl Sagan. Here are just a couple of examples of his insights. Quote, "Science is not only compatible with spirituality, it is a profound source of spirituality," end quote. And, quote, "How is it that hardly any major religion has looked at science and concluded, this is better than we thought. The universe is much bigger than our prophets said, grander, more subtle, and more elegant," end quote. No, sorry, that's not the end of the quote. Here's the rest of it. Instead, they say, "No, no, no, my God is a little God, and I want him to stay that way." A religion, old or new, that stressed the magnificence of the universe as revealed by modern science might be able to draw forth reserves of reverence and awe hardly tapped by the conventional faiths. That's end quote. And the other writer is the man we celebrate today, Charles Darwin. Darwin's insights in his seminal work on the origin of species by means of natural selection remains to this day one of the bedrocks of biological science. But Darwin was a man of his time and culture, and he too struggled with traditional theistic belief in light of his understanding of what is the engine of evolution, natural selection, the mass elimination and suffering of countless species on Earth. Tennyson's "Nature red in tooth and claw." In 1879, he wrote a letter stating that while he had never been an atheist, quote, "an agnostic would be the more correct description of my state of mind," end quote. Still, at the end of The Origin of Species, Darwin spoke of a grandeur in this view of life. A grandeur in this view of life. I see in this statement evidence of his deeply spiritual belief. Of what does this grandeur consist? Glenn Gayer, an evolutionary biologist, wrote in Psychology Today an article that talked about the implications of Darwin's theory spiritually. He highlighted several points. These were the two that spoke to me. All of life on Earth derives from the same common ancestors. We are all kin. And human universals abound. The way we smile, the experience of romantic love, the love we have for our children. Darwin's passionate and vocal opposition to the institution of slavery during his time serves as a good example of the ethical implications of these insights. In the end, Darwin's science aligned deeply with his values. I'll close with another Carl Sagan gem. Quote, "We are the local embodiment of a cosmos grown to self-awareness. We have begun to contemplate our origins, star stuff, pondering the stars." End quote. Grandeur indeed. Like Einstein said, "I am a deeply religious non-believer." Me too, Albert. Me too.
Thank you, Mike. Charles Darwin was a Unitarian, a British Unitarian, and yesterday would have been his 212th birthday, hence today's service theme. Our first Unitarian Universalist source of inspiration lifts up that transcending mystery and wonder affirmed in all cultures that moves us to a renewal of the spirit. My earliest experience of that sense of transcending mystery and wonder was lying on the grass in the backyard of my home, staring up at the night sky, looking at the few stars that I could visualize with my naked eyes, and feeling disoriented by the hugeness of it all. I remember the sensation as I stared and stared into that darkness, the stars coming into and out of my focus, this sensation that I was falling up into the sky, knowing that I was so small on this tiny little planet in this ordinary solar system in one of millions of galaxies. But rather than making me feel insignificant, I had the opposite reaction. Complete and utter awe that our existence and consciousness was possible at all. And then gratitude. There might have been nothing, but there was not nothing. There was something, and I get to be a part of it. As a child, I wrestled often with religious questions. I'm not sure why. Perhaps it was just my personality. Maybe it was my proximity to mortality as a young child being challenged by health issues. But I wondered a lot about the big questions. And I found answers for a long time in traditional conservative Christianity. It felt comforting to have a personal God in charge of all of the chaos, because I sure knew that I was not in charge of it. But over time, the nagging questions, the increased awareness of world cultures, beliefs, science, philosophy, my own personal experiences brought me to a place where that personal God was no longer something that I could believe in. I tried. I wanted to believe. Truth be told, sometimes I still do. I miss that spiritual relationship that I had with that God, the faith and trust I had, the comfort I felt, the challenge that I felt called to live up to maintain that relationship. And for those of you who still maintain some version of a relationship with a deity, I fully honor and support your beliefs and your path. But for me, it just didn't fit anymore. I would have been a hypocrite to try to keep claiming that it was my belief. My first Unitarian Universalist church that I found in college had a prayer practice in the middle of each Sunday service. The minister would speak some words that invoked connection, love, comfort, hope, and would lift up the joys and concerns of the community. And the minister would begin that prayer each week with, God of many names, mystery beyond all our naming. That was how I knew I was in the right place. I didn't particularly need to actively reject God, but I needed to widen my lens to that mystery beyond all naming. And that is what it felt like. It felt like a widening, an opening of my heart and my arms beyond myself to something so much bigger. And in some strange way, that something bigger embraced me back. In college, around the same time that I discovered the Unitarian Universalist Church and this mystery beyond all our naming, I was pre-med, studying science. I was also leading a program on our college campus called Women in Science and Engineering, WISE, W-I-S-E. We college students would coordinate events every month and bring local elementary school girls, 4th through 6th grade, to our campus to learn and engage with science. I had fun, no surprise, coming up with cool activities, along with inviting professors to help us find ways to make the programs engaging for the kids. And I remember one activity where a professor used a surveying tool, like for building a road. And we marked off a timeline on the ground. Something like, I don't remember, half an inch was 1,000,000 years. Now, I don't remember all the details, but the earliest recorded point in history was something like a millimeter away from where we started. And the Earth's formation was many, many blocks down the road, or maybe even miles, I don't remember. But I remember being completely in awe of this visualization of the vastness of time. But again, rather than feeling insignificant, it made me feel part of this total, this whole expanse of time. When I became a minister about 10 years after that college WISE experience, I served at a congregation where the senior minister, Reverend Fred Muir, had a passion for Charles Darwin. He even edited the book, The Whole World Kin, which is a UU book about the intersection of our faith and evolution and a scientific worldview. One time in a meeting, he said, "Wouldn't it be cool if we could have a summer camp for our kids and we taught them about Darwin and evolution?" And with my experience in WISE, I began to work with some amazing volunteers to create Camp Beagle, named after the HMS Beagle, which Darwin was aboard when he made his observations that led to the theory of evolution by natural selection. In creating and supporting Camp Beagle for many years, I delved into both the scientific and the spiritual aspects of evolution. We jokingly called it, and it was actually put in the newspaper, headline of the newspaper, Science Church Camp. But it was true. We only shared scientific truths with the campers, but we also instilled in them a powerful sense of interconnection, wonder, awe, and gratitude at the many miracles of our universe and our planet. One of the purposes of religion is to help us answer the big questions of our life, to help us make meaning in our lives. Religion often comes into play in people's lives when things are especially painful, confusing, or complex. As the saying goes, there are no atheists in foxholes, which is not true, and I disagree with that saying. But I agree that many people do seek out the solace, hope, and answers that religion can provide when they are struggling. We heard from Marie earlier when she said she joined this fellowship after 9/11, and I know others did too. Many of you also joined when a presidential election left you feeling in despair, or when you were dealing with a personal crisis or tragedy. The problem with the modern new atheist thinkers and writers like Richard Dawkins or Christopher Hitchens is that they don't acknowledge the need that humans have for this support, this comfort, hope, and answers. By blithely eliminating God or deriding people's faith without providing or suggesting something to replace it with, it's, from where I'm standing, irresponsible at best and cruel at worst. Darwin's assessment that there is grandeur in this view of life is the same conclusion that I have also come to. In my own religious searching, which continues today and hopefully will continue until I reach the end of my life, I have come to realize that I am most comfortable with the term religious naturalist to describe my own theological perspective. When it comes to God or gods, I am, most of the time, an agnostic. It's not so much that I don't know whether God exists, it's that I feel sure that the answer to the question of God's existence is unknowable. And so I find inspiration and answers to the big questions of religion, or at least the fodder to explore those questions, in the natural world. For many people, this notion that we humans evolved from lower life forms leaves them feeling unimportant, that their worth is intact only if they were intentionally created by a God in God's image and given a special place at the top of the pecking order that is comprised of the many species on this planet. But that is not the only option. We could also know that our evolution over millennia, that our ancestors' survival and adaptation gave rise to what we are today, that the intricacy of our inner ear is thanks to the fish who were bold and brave enough to climb up on land. Knowing that our brains are struggling to comprehend the amount of information and stimulation that they encounter every day, that the fight or flight instincts of our reptilian foreparents, that it's not our fault if we're stressed out. Knowing that our opposable thumbs provided some advantage in grasping, eating, fighting, building, or whatever it was to our hominid ancestors. Knowing that we are the inheritors of all of the risks, successes, and changes from generation to generation, it's possible that this view of life can fill us with such gratitude and awe and hope for the future, because we too have the power to adapt if we are bold and brave enough to risk it for the sake of the next generations. Peter Mayer, the UU singer-songwriter most beloved by UUs for his hymn Blue Boat Home, is himself a religious naturalist. When I was in seminary, I once spent about an hour chatting with him about my fantasy of creating a Unitarian Universalist liturgical calendar that was embedded in naturalist cycles. I will never forget his warm embrace of my seminarian enthusiasm. He was such a nice guy. His song, Holy Now, which we just heard beautifully done by Steve, chronicles his personal journey from a faith where miracles were scarce and confined to certain places, certain times, and books, to one where miracles were abundant. From a worldview that put holiness in a tiny box to one that saw holiness everywhere. And so in that spirit, in the spirit of seeking religious answers through religious naturalism. Would you join me in a moment of reflection, centering, or maybe you wish to think of it as prayer? God of many names, mystery beyond all our naming, we reach out with our hearts and our minds beyond the labels, words, stories, and compartments that have limited our view of the miraculous. As we reach out beyond ourselves, beyond our community, beyond our borders, beyond our planet, beyond this galaxy, we feel the enormity of existence. And we know that we are held in it. That there might have been nothing, but there is not nothing. There is something. We know that we are the inheritors of this universal impulse toward existence, light, elements, and life. We know that we are not alone, not here on this earth and perhaps not beyond it. We know that we are not teetering at the top of a pyramid of life, but nestled instead in the comforting branches of the evolutionary tree, surrounded by our ancestors and siblings and cousins, human, animal, and otherwise. We feel the warmth of the interconnections of cells and neurons and atoms within and beyond and between our awareness. We acknowledge the chaos, and we know that it has been with us always. We reach out with our hearts and minds, and we know that you that is bigger than each and all of us, whatever we might call you, energy, time, space, love, we know that you reach back and embrace us in your wholeness and in our wholeness too. Amen. And may it be so.
Please join in singing Knowledge, they say. Knowledge, they say, drives wonder from the world. They say it's still, though all the dust's ablaze, with marvels at their feet, while Newton's laws foretell that knowledge one day shall be song. We seem like children wandering by the shore, gathering pebbles colored by the wave, while the great sea of truth from sky to sky stretches before us, boundless, unexplored.
Part of our commitment to each other is to bring our joys and concerns to this time together. It's our sincere hope that we can be a resource in our common quest to celebrate happy moments and to seek healing, and wholeness in this complex journey of life. In a moment, I will put into the chat box those joys and concerns that have been submitted by people in our circle of care. And you can also share in the chat box whatever joy, concern, prayer request, or intention might be in your heart or on your mind. For care and connection during the week, please reach out to Minister Allie or contact our office. If you'd like to have your joy or concern included in our weekly email, you can call or contact anyone on staff or fill out our website form. May these joys and concerns that we share with each other or simply hold in our hearts' silent sanctuaries allow our joy to be amplified, our sorrow comforted, and our life journeys witnessed. And now we turn our attention to those joys and concerns wider than those of our gathered community. We allow our mind and heart to reach out like the ripples in water. For each stone that we place in our water, we will name the joys and concerns in our larger community or world. The first stone is for the joys, concerns, and transitions that are here among us. As the water ripples out, we add another stone to expand our hearts to our Fox Valley and Wisconsin communities. This coming Tuesday is Election Day in our community, and we encourage all who are able to vote to do so, to have your voice and values be counted in the local elections that matter in our community, including for school board. We add our next stone for the United States. We hold our Indigenous siblings in our hearts, and we lift up the local rally that will be held tomorrow at noon at Houdini Plaza to bring attention to the ongoing crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit, locally and around our nation. As the ripples continue, we add our final stone as we recognize our interconnection across borders and oceans. And we add this stone for our partner church in Deva, Romania, where the news has come that after many, many years of faithful leadership, their minister, Kopandi Zoli, will be leaving to take a position at the National Unitarian Church. Zoli has visited us here in Appleton, and many of us have visited him and the congregation in Deva. And while we grieve this transition, we wish him well in his next endeavor and commit to continuing our partnerships into the future in new ways. We enfold all who are celebrating and all who are suffering in the embrace of our hearts, and we commit ourselves to acts of compassion and justice in service to those circles beyond our own. May this moment of silence help to make it so.
Our time together is coming to a close, which means our time to return to the world and to our daily lives is beginning. Remember that there are always ways to get connected here, even online, and to live your faith more fully. Be sure to read the weekly Scroll e-newsletter or let one of our staff members know if you want to be added to that mailing list. Check the order of service for some highlights about what's coming up. Now, as we prepare to leave this gathering, we invite you to consider what you wish to take home with you, what lesson, idea, or theme you will carry with you from this time together back into your daily lives. Our hope is that it will serve as inspiration and empowerment for your week ahead. And now please join me in our unison words for extinguishing our chalice flame, even as we continue to hold its warmth and light in our hearts. As we extinguish this flame, let us go our ways with hope in our hearts, with our spirits renewed, and with a deeper understanding of life's mystery. Let us carry the light and of compassion and commitment to build a better world. After our closing words, we will hear a postlude song. We invite those of you who want to stay on Zoom for small group conversation. A member of our care team will host a group for anyone who wants to share more deeply about whatever is on your heart. Another group will be for conversation about the themes of the service with Reverend Christina and me. And there will be a final group for informal, unmoderated chit-chat. Everyone else is welcome to use that time to log off. Go in interconnection, with hearts open to wonder. Go in peace, knowing that we wait to embrace you upon your return.
All right, everybody, the rooms are open, so you should be able to join them. Just give me a second. All right, we're going to give everyone a minute to join, and anybody who's having trouble or doesn't know which room to pick, just wait here for a minute or so. We'll let everybody go in, and then I can help everybody else who needs help.